Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech for UGH Consulting, and this is Excel Clinic Projects. My name is SK Enim. We are looking at practical Excel lessons for accounting and finance. And today, our focus is on how to prepare profit and loss account using pivot table. So let's say you have your data like this. This is typically an account data where we have the entry IDs, we have the accounting years, we have the account types, we have the sub-account, department, levels, amount, budgeted amount, actual amount, and then the date that transaction happened. So typically our rule is to see that this looks like a GL, which is a general ledger account, and we are going to prepare our profit and loss account from this very data. Our objective is to get a finished thing like this that we can present to management for decision making. And so from this raw data, we are migrating to get to this particular level that we have here. We can have to select them very interactive, and then we can click any part. If I want to check for education for 2025, you can click and then you can do that. So technically, this is a very wonderful dashboard activity that can help you to be able to do that. And our role as accounting and professionals is to use pivot table to prepare this report we are seeing here from this database. So we are going to start from a scratch, and then we go step by step to get to the finished look that we see over here. Okay, so let's begin. First of all, we need to begin to examine our data, and then we can begin to use it. We'll have to make sure that all the columns that we have column headers. So each of the data, the columns that we have within the data set have a column header. And if that is the case, then we can see that we have met one condition for a proper data set. The other condition is also to ensure that we have an empty row around the data that actually separates empty column and empty row around the data, that makes this data like being in a container. So it separates it from other data that we have. And secondly, we should also be able to ensure that there's no complete empty row or empty column in the data. So to check that, we can just select the one heading and then put our cursor at the lower bar of the cell we have selected, double click on it, and it will automatically jump to the last item. If it doesn't meet any empty cell, then we are sure that we have a very complete data without empty row. Then we can do the same thing. We can also use the shortcut, keyboard shortcut. So control arrow right, arrow out. When you do that and it moves to the end, then you know that you don't have any column that separates the two data sets that you have. So once we have checked and we've seen that we have a complete data set, we can as well put this table data that we have into a table form, so that they package the data into a container for easy handling. So that's what we're going to do. To convert this data into a table, you can select any part of the data, go to insert, and then you can see convert to a table here. The shortcut or the hotkey for it is Control T. So once you click on Control T, this dialog box will come. You say, where is the data for the table we want to create? We have already selected any part of the data and it meets the criteria. So you can see that automatically it has selected the region or the range where we want to put into the data form. And then we also met the criteria where our column headers, our columns have heading for it. So we can check the box and say, my table has a header, and then we click OK. Automatically, the data set will change, and then we'll see it moves into a different color grading for us. To make sure or to check that you are within the data, a new tab has been introduced in the ribbon called Table Design, and the various tools in Table Design has also been able to open for you. Here, you can be able to change your table styles into any form that you want. So if the table is not nice for you, you can choose the default one, as well as you can also go into the manual way of creating your own table and then apply it to it. All these styles are things that you can do under the table. So we can also rename the table. We can call it maybe table GL. So let's just table GL. So we rename the table. We can also resize the table. We can convert it back to original range. We can remove duplicate and others. So take your time and look at this. If you go back, there are a bunch of things you can do to the table. Our focus is on how to do pivot, use the pivot table to prepare our P&L account from this data that we have. So let's quickly move on. So to create a pivot table, you can go to the Insert tab in the ribbon at the top there, and then at the far left corner, you can see a pivot table. So here, I'll take my time to go through. You can create a pivot table from scratch, or you can also look at recommended. Once you click on the recommended, Excel is going to look at some of the recommended tables that you have. So you put your cursor on it, review them, and if you like it, you automatically use it to create the table that you want. But we want to create it from scratch. So we go back to it and then create this from scratch. So we can also use the shortcut Alt NVT, and then the same dialog box will come for us to do. So Alt NVT, then we get the table to run for us. There are two things you can do here. First of all, it has selected the table already. So second, you must choose where you want to place the pivot table. So you have the opportunity to select the new worksheet, which will open a new worksheet within the same workbook and put the report on it. Or you have created a report pane that you want to put in existing worksheet. So you select existing and then you define the location, click the location and then click OK. And it will. For this particular example, we are doing it on a new sheet. So we click a new sheet and then we move. All right. So this is our pivot table report pane. So we have the report view and then we have the report filter view. The thing is that the report filter is going to help us to build the report on the report view. So this is where the reports of the analysis we are going to do with the pivot table will be placed. And this is where we can use to build the headings of the column as we have in the data to build the report. So we have about 5 quadrants here. Let's go through. The first quadrant is the heading, displays the headers for the raw data that we are trying to analyze. So when you go there, you see the data is there. And then the 4 quadrant that we have here, we have the row, we have the column, and then we have the value. The row is any item we want it to display on the row. So if we want the account year to display on the row, we can come in and then drag it. So you put your cursor on it and drag it, or you can just check the box and then it will run for you. Because Excel looks at it in the form, let's look at the data. It shows that it's a number. So Excel automatically places it here, but we don't want it there. So we can move it and then place it at the row. And then we automatically get the list of it displayed on the row for us. Okay, so in this case, we are going to put account type here so that we see the various account type that we have on the rows. So we have the cost of goods sold as an account type. We have the expenses and then we have the revenue as well. Now we have the sub account. That means that each account type that we see here has a sub account. So we pick the same sub account and put it under the account type so that each of the sub account will be displayed under the main account that it belongs to. So that is technically how it is. Now, when you look at a typical profit and loss account, we have the revenue at the top, then we have the cost of goods sold, then we come to expenses. So we can put our cursor on it and select it like this. Then we put our cursor at the edge of the cell that we have selected, the border. and then you hold it and then drag it to the top where you want to place it. Then you release your hand, then automatically it's rearranged for you to have the revenue at the top. Then you have the cost of goods sold, as well as having the other stuff that you have. Now the next thing to do here is that we want to show the actual amount that's collected, and then we want to also show the budgeted amount. Now if I pick the actuals and put it at the row, let me just run through small for you. So let me just undo that. Now we're talking about the rows. The rows have displayed the item here. Now when we go to the values, anything that we want to calculate in the pivot table, whether we want to raise a percentage, whether we want to count, we want to do summation or average, anything that involves calculation, we put it at the value. So we drag the heading of the actual amount and then leave it, hold it and drag it to the value, and then do same for budget. Then automatically you see that it is summarizing all the records in terms of the actuals versus the budgeted. So here we just have to come and rename them as well. Then technically we want to name this one as actual, but when you go to the data, we only have a heading for actuals and budgeted. So to trick it a little, I will select the sum of and then just hit my space bar. So instead of doing it, I just put a space before and then hit enter. Then it can now be able to pick it. It differentiates it from the column header we have in the data. So we pick a space bar and then we'll have it. So now we have done revenue, we have done all the row items, and then we have also done the value items. Now what we know here is that in a typical profit and loss account, we also have what we call the gross margin or the gross profit, and then we also have the net profit. So we need to add an item to our pivot table here. Other than that, we just have a pivot table that have picked all the revenue, all the items, account types that we have, and put the various summation of the amount that was actual amount spent and then the budgeted amount. We can also select each of these amount and then we right click on it and then we say format, number format. Then we can now put it in an accounting number format, leave it at 2 decimal place, and then do no symbol, currency symbol. So when I click OK, it formatted nice for me. Then I can do the same thing to the budgeted amount as well. Number format and go to currency accounting format and then leave it at 2 decimal place and then show no non-currency symbol. Click OK and then you get it. So gradually we are trying to brush and clean our data in a pivot table and make it fine. So the next thing we have to do over here is how do we insert new items that are not on the data here. Somebody would have calculated those things here and then pick them as we build them on using the report filter. But then by other means too, we can create these items without duplicating the data or increasing the volume or the size of the data. So let's look at how we do it. We select any of the items here, then you go to pivot analyzing pivot table analyzed. So within the pivot table analyzed, check the various tools that we have and look for calculations. So the calculation is at the right corner here, and then we see field, items, and sets. This is where we can create the items that we want to introduce in it without duplicating the data that we have. So you click on it and then we say we want to bring a calculated item because we are introducing items here. So click on calculated item. Now when you click on the calculated item, this insert item calculate dialog box will appear. First of all, we need to enter the name of the item we are creating. So we are creating what we call gross profit. And then we need to insert a formula to calculate the gross profit. But before we do that, look down here. We have the field and then we have the items. So these are the fields we have in the data. And then we are creating the items under the account type. So you click on the account type and then the various items we have within the account type will show here. And we know that to determine gross profit, it is always given by your revenue. So we select the revenue here, then you click insert item, then it's set here, then you enter your minus on the keyboard, and then you select cost of goods sold, and then you click insert item. Now we have created the formula for the revenue calculations, the gross profit calculation. But we said we are doing gross profit, and at the same time, we didn't type gross profit, and at the same time net income. So the thing is that when you click OK, you will not have the opportunity to add it again. So we add this to the module we are doing, and then we come and create another one called net income. And then under net income, we go and define the formula to calculate net income. And we know that our net income is also given by the gross profit minus the expenses that we have. So we go to the account type and then we click on it. One click, just two click, and then we see the items we have. Now we have seen gross profit inside. So we can select gross profit, insert it, and then you subtract your expenses from it. So you select the expenses and then click insert item. So here we have created a new item called net income and define the calculation. So once we click OK, it will be introduced here. So now you see we have our gross profit being added, and then we have our net income also added to our pivot table without necessarily duplicating them in the database that we have, or the data table that we have. So I don't want to see all the other sub items for it. So I'll move to the item here. There is a minus sign over here by the net item name. So I'll click on it and then it closes it. The thing is that it's expandable. So when I click on the plus, expand it, and then I can close it. I'll do the same for gross profit as well. Now, we need to also rearrange it here again. When we look at profit and loss, we have revenue item, we have the cost of goods sold, and then we have the gross profit before we have the expenses. So we take the gross profit, drag it and leave it at the top of the expenses, and then we have a gross profit account here, and then we have our net income. So gradually we are building our report. Now, the way it looks at, let's do a little brushing to it. We want to insert in our profit and loss statement. You will see that there's a subtotal for each of the item. We don't put the totals at the top, but we put it below each of the item line. So what we can do is select the pivot table and then go to table design. And then at the far left corner here, there are some items that we have to look. So we have the subtotals that we have. We want to show all subtotals at the bottom of each group. So once we click on it, we introduce a subtotal at the bottom of each group. We move it from the top and then we bring it to the bottom of each group. Now, the subtotals are joined to the items, and I want to put a space between each of the item grouping that we have. So at the end of revenue subtotal, we want to have a space there, and then we have to have a space at the cost of, so that the report will look nice. So that's when you go to blank space, click on the arrow down, and then it says that insert a blank line after each item. You can also remove it after insert. So we insert it after each item, and then automatically we have inserted a blank row after each of the item, as you can see over here. Now we are still building our report. Now the next thing is that I don't want to see this label, row label, and then the expandable tab that we see here. So I'll go to the analysis, and then you go to the far right corner, you see show. Under show, you have the field headers. Just unshow the field headers, and then automatically it goes. Then we also have the buttons, the close and the expanding buttons. So you also click on it and it goes. And so now we can see that our report is now picking shape. The last thing we have to do is that we don't want to show the grand total here. So we select it, go to design, and then we go to the grand total and we say off for rows and columns so that the grand total will go. So off for rows and columns, then we click on it and it goes. I want to insert two sheets. I want to insert two columns so that I have a space around my report. So I'll just come in here, select A to B, right click on it, and they say insert. Then automatically I can adjust to have a sheet be like this. Our report is picking shape, and we are still within the pivot table to do this kind of analysis. Now, the next thing we want to do is also to track the variance and the variance report. So since we don't have the variance tracked in this data set, we can also add the field that can help us track the variance. So we can select any of these headers here, select one, go to pivot table analyze, and then at the where we did the items and the calculations, we can also click on it, and that we select field. So we are going to create what we call variance. And this time it is a variance in amount. So variance in amount. So you can type the currency that you are working with in there, and then you close it. So we also defined the formula to calculate the variance. And here what we are going to do is that we are going to subtract pick the actuals, insert it, and then we subtract our budget figure from it. And then we have defined the variance, so we can add. I am also interested in doing variance percentage, so I only change the percentage sign in it so that we see. But the variance percentage is the actual budget divided by the actual amount divided by the budget minus 1, so that I can now add it to it, and automatically I have created the variance report that I have. So I can come here and then enter, right click, and then go to format, and then I said I want to do it in a percentage form, and then we click OK, and then we have our percentages create for us. So we have a negative. When we have a negative, it means that the budget is higher than the actuals. So the revenue side, when the budget is higher than the actuals, it means it is bad. But in the expenses side, when it is negative, it means we make gain. So at the revenue, we made losses when it is negative, and at the expenses side, we made gains when it is actually negative. So this our profit and loss account, and it is taking shape. We can do the same thing by selecting the sum of, hit the space, and then we pick it, select this, hit the space, and then we'll have it. So gradually we are getting. The next one we want to do is that I want to remove the table style that I have on the report, so that I can put my proper accounting table styles to put the report in shapes. So I'll select it, go to design, and then I can come here and then select none. I select none. So when I selected none, it's still giving me some of the things. So I can go inside and said I want to design a new table, select the whole table, and then go to format. And then I want to take no border, click on none, and then I've taken all the border from there. And then I can go to OK, and then I can say OK. So now when I select, I have the custom one here. I can apply it, and then I don't have any border for it. So now let's look at how we can format this particular one. This is my header. So I'll select all of them, go to the font under home tab, font, and then put a thicker border under it to separate it. Please, I change this color, so I'll go and make it black, and then I can click, and then I get it. Now I can also put a small border, upper border to select these ones. Can do the same thing for total gross as well. Then I can give a double border for my gross profit, double border for my gross profit. And then I'll do this one. So I'm giving an accounting border format. And then when it comes to my net income, I can give it a double border button here. So it's put actually in shape. So this, I'm getting a report done. So technically, you can see that our report is actually taking shape. We can go to view and then take all grid lines from there so that we can have a report that is looking very nice for us. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is to be able to add conditional formatting to this that we have. Conditional formatting. Remember, we are trying to get to this stage. So we are trying to add the conditional formatting to the ones that we have. So let's go to it and add the conditional format. Now, we select all the revenue or the positive account. Select all of them. So select it, hold down the control key and go and select your profits. And then you select the income. These are the accounts that are supposed to be positive for you. So we go to the home tab and then we move straight to styles and then we go to conditional formatting. Here we want to bring icons to show that, and I am picking this shape icon to do that. All right. So as I select like this, let's look at it. For the revenue items, negative balances are actually good for us. They are gains. So I don't want it to show red when it shows losses. So as it is highlighted like this, I can go straight to conditional format and create an inverse of the way the icons are being displayed. So let's go inside, and this time we go to manage rules. And then we have the rule that we have created here. So select that rule and go to edit the rule. So this is the icon that we have. Now we can just say reverse icon order. So once you reverse the icon order and then you come back here, we have to define the value. So here, instead of a percentage, we can now go out and say we want a number. So we pick a number, and then when it says that it's greater than 0, if it is greater than 0, show red. If it is less than 0, show green. So we also pick a number here. So the item greater than or equal to 0 is red. Less than, greater than or equal to 0 when it's less than but greater than 0 is called green, and then yellow, and then when it is less than 0 it is green, because we are dealing with revenue items. So losses here are actually gain, and we are doing that because we subtracted the budgeted figure from the actual figure. So when we click OK and then we apply, we get a reverse of what we have done. So all the positive figures here are red, whilst the negative figures are giving us green because they are gains for us. So what it shows here is that our gross profit is actually higher than our budgeted gross profit, about 15,000. About 15,000. So we had a gain of 0.06%. We can also do the same conditional formatting to the cost, the expenses or the cost items. So we select the cost items, select the first one, hold down the control key and select the second section of it. Now head back to the home page under the styles and go to conditional formatting. Go to icons and select the same icon type that we want to use for it. Now we can now go inside. For this particular one, negatives should show red, and you can see that negatives are showing red, but we need to define that we are dealing with numbers. So go to conditional formatting again, go to manage rules, and then select the rule that you created and go to edit rule. This time we are not going to do a reverse. we are going to change the percentage to a number, and then change this one to a number, and then click OK, and then we apply, and then we OK it. Now we technically see how conditional formatting has been added beautifully to the report that we have. So now you can see that with the revenue items, we have the losses, the green to show the gains, and then for the cost items, we have the losses to be indicated by red. And that is a technical one that we have done. We can do other adjustment to it. We can select the empty spaces, come to the row number here, put your cursor below, drag it small so that you can have it close small for you. So you do that to all of them, and then we can have it a bit nice to put the reports. Okay. So the last one we want to do, and to make this one more interactive, is to go add what we call slices to this report so that it can be more interactive to present it at any meeting that you are. So let's go to select the pivot table that we have. Remember, it is still a pivot table. We can close this pivot table report here, but we still have a pivot table. So select any part of it, then go to analyze, and then you can hit to the filter side, and you can see slices over here. Click on slices, and then we are going to add the account here. We are adding a department, and then we are adding a program level as well. Then we can hit OK, and then we'll have them here. Let's drag them one after the other to the left side here and adjust them. Now, in adjusting it, I can drag it and adjust it, but when you select the slicer tab opens, and then in it we can have a slicer style. So I just want to make it blue, any color that fits the designs that you have. And then I go to the buttons and increase my columns to maybe 3 to show the buttons here. Then I can now drag this one to fit for me. And then I can drag the department and put it here as well. For the department, I can either leave it like this, or let me try the editing, the slicer, and then do 2 and see if all will show. It is not showing. Let me do a little dragging. Okay, so it's going to show good. Can resize the slicer as well. And then here we can have it to show down here. Okay, and then we can drag this particular one, and then also resize it just to make it look nice. And then I also want to show it in 3 columns as well. Drag it to this side and then show it. So if I want, I can drag this one, and let me change this one to 1 column, and then open it up so that it will be nice, and then drag this one and join it to this side. So technically, I have created the slices for it. And then if I want to see only the report for account year 2023, I select it, and automatically my pivot table is being adjusted according to the selections that I have in the slices. So I click on it, and then I adjust the figure. So in a presentation, you can decide to speak to 2023, and you want to see only the arts, and then you see how profitable they are in it. You can also go and see only the science, only the engineering, and then you say you want to see art, science, engineering for only level 300, then you can get it, and then you can send. So this is how interactive we can use the pivot table to build a profit and loss account from our data that we have. So when you look at it, it looks the same that we create. The only thing is that we have to come here, and if it's a report, we can right click, insert other sheets with it, and then we can also create, select all displays, and maybe go to font, shade it the way you want to shade it, give it any color, type your company name, and then you put the title of the thing you are doing. So maybe we say profits and loss account. So we can do some kind of editing. I want to make it white. I want to make it bold. And then I want to put this one top here small. And then so we can just close it. And then we can increase the size to make it look more visible. You can decide to put other things on it depending on the report that you are creating, and then make it nice. But technically, this is how we use our pivot table to do profit and loss account. We can come here and bold in the sizes that we have just to make it look more nicer. And then the revenue items are also bolding. We come to cost of goods sold, we bolding it. We bolding these items that we have it in there, and then becomes nice for our report. So technically, we have used the pivot table to run our profit and loss account right from the data that we had here to do that. So please enjoy it. The lessons is having the slides. The video is going to have the slides at the bottom, and I want you to go through and see if you can create it yourself. Enjoy this lesson and stay tuned for more other hacks that we bring, more other lessons. We've also launched a 90-day Excel skills challenge that is also in the link that you can enjoy. Stay with us on that particular one. Try to improve your skills day by day, and after the 90 days you'll be a guru in Excel to do things, increase your efficiency and professional outlook with it. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit on the notification bell so that as soon as a new video is dropped, you can come in and do that. Thank you and stay tuned.